What have we got? Yeah, just waiting for one or two people, yes, to log in. Yeah, we're coming through now. So yes, Jai Sheila here this morning. Just a bit of a change. I think Ananda Prabhu is doing a weekend slot, maybe on Sunday, and I'm usually on Thursday, but I'm traveling tomorrow. We're Krishna willing heading down towards the festival down at Rotorua. And instead of tomorrow, then I thought I'll take the slot today and we'll speak a little more about Bhagavad-gita. So just to begin, we're going to do a short Jai Radha Madhav. Again, that will just let one or two other people come in, I'm sure. Okay, so just a short Jai Radha Madhava, and then we'll go to Bhagavad-gita, and the chapter is 2 and the verse is 2. So that's Bhagavad-gita 2 coming up. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Givadadhari Yashodanandana Praja Jana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Gaur Premanandi Haribo Jayam Vishnupada Paramahansa Paribrajacharya Astottara Satasi Sri Maharaj Divine Grace Sabai Charanaravindra Bhakta Vedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Gauda Vaishnava Brinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Brinda Ki Jai C.C. Radha Krishna Gogopinatha Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Mathura Brindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Srimati Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Granthara Srimad Bhagavad-gita Ki Jai Gopremanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavad-gita as it is, by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, Chapter 2, Text number 2. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Kutastva Kashmalam Idam Vishame Shamupashtitam Anarya Justam Ashvargyam Akirtikaram Arjuna. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Supreme Person, Bhagavan, said, "My dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the progressive values of life. They do not lead to higher planets, but to infamy." Srila Prabhupada's purport. Krishna and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are identical. Therefore, Lord Krishna is referred to as Bhagavan throughout the Gita. Bhagavan is the ultimate in the Absolute Truth. Absolute Truth is realized in three phases of understanding, namely Brahman, or the impersonal, all-pervasive spirit, Paramatma, or the localized aspect of the Supreme within the heart of all living entities, and Bhagavan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, this conception of the Absolute Truth is explained thus: Vadanti tattvavidas tattvam yajganam advayam brahmati paramatmati bhagavaniti sabdyate. Translation: the Absolute Truth is realized in three phases of understanding by the knower of the Absolute Truth, and all of them are identical. Such phases of the Absolute Truth are expressed as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Srimad Bhagavatam 1-11. These three divine aspects can be explained by the example of the sun, which also has three different aspects. So it's maybe important for us to just mention that when we discuss the subject of the Supreme, or the idea or conceptions of Godhead, the creator or the source of everything, then different concepts abound, and those mainly are contained in the three aspects that we're hearing now from Srimad Bhagavatam. So it can become quite, what would we say, a little bit difficult to understand that although God is everywhere and everything, and that's fully understood through Brahman, although he's localized as the Paramatma, the super soul, the guiding personality from within the heart of every living being, he is explained to also be Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Srila Prabhupada's unpacking this and helping us to understand right at the beginning of Bhagavad-gita. These three divine aspects can be explained by the example of the sun, which also has three different aspects, namely the sunshine, the sun's surface, and the sun planet itself. One who studies the sunshine only is the preliminary student. One who understands the sun's surface is further advanced, and one who can enter into the sun planet is the highest. Ordinary students who are satisfied by simply understanding the sunshine, its universal pervasiveness, and the glaring effulgence of its impersonal nature, may be compared to those who can realize only the Brahman feature of the Absolute Truth. So the Brahman realized entity or personality is seeing the all-pervasive, glaring effulgence of the Supreme Godhead. And that is the extent of the understanding that God is everywhere. His energies pervade everything. And therefore there is nothing separate from that Absolute. And Prabhupada's continuing. The student who has advanced still further can know the sun disk, which is compared to knowledge of the Paramatma feature of the Absolute truth. And the student who can enter into the heart of the sun planet is compared to those who realize the personal feature of the Supreme Absolute Truth. Therefore, the Bhaktas, or the Transcendentalists who have realized the Bhagavan feature of the Absolute Truth, are the topmost Transcendentalists, although all students who are engaged in the study of the Absolute Truth are engaged in the same subject matter. The sunshine, the sun disk, and the inner affairs of the sun planet cannot be separated from one another. And yet, the students of the three different phases are not in the same category. The Sanskrit word Bhagavan is explained by the great authority Parasar Muni, the father of Vyasadeva. The Supreme Personality, who possesses all riches, all strength, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation, is called Bhagavan. There are many persons who are very rich, very learned, and very much detached, but no one can claim that he possesses all riches, all strength, etc. entirely. Only Krishna can claim this because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No living entity, including Brahma, Lord Shiva, or Narayan, can possess opulences as fully as Krishna. Therefore, it is concluded in the Brahma Samhita by Lord Brahma himself that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. No one is equal to or above him. He is the primeval Lord, or Bhagavan, known as Govinda, and he is the supreme cause of all causes. Ishvara Paramakrishna Sachidananda Anadiradi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. He's the primeval cause of all causes. Ishvara Paramakrishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. He's the primeval cause of all causes. Oh, I'm sorry, that's just what's being, that's just coming. Sorry. Ishvara Paramakrishna Sachidananda Vigraharanadir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. There are many personalities possessing the qualities of Bhagavan, but Krishna is the supreme because none can excel him. He is the supreme person, and his body is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. He is the primeval Lord Govinda and the cause of all causes. Brahma Samhita 5.1. In the Srimad Bhagavatam also there is a list of many incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but Krishna is described as the original personality of Godhead, from whom many incarnations and personalities of Godhead expand. Ite chamsa kala pumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mridayanti Yuge Yuge. Translation: all the lists of the incarnations of Godhead submitted herewith are either plenary expansions or parts of the plenary expansions of the Supreme Godhead. But Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Srimad Bhagavatam 1:3-28. The Srimad Bhagavatam was written by Srila Vyasadeva after receiving instruction from his spiritual master Narada Muni that why are you feeling undone? Why are you feeling despondent, my dear Vyas? And he was feeling that way because he had not described the personality of Godhead to any great extent in the other Vedic literatures that he compiled. And he was encouraged to go on and explain the personality of Godhead, and that would bring great satisfaction to himself and also would be beneficial for all persons, especially those in the Kali Yuga, when the Lord has disappeared again or gone from this world. It's said that the Bhagavatam says that they will get light from this Purana, Puranaka, Janotitaha, that This Bhagavad Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam, has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali will get light from this Purana. So Srimad Bhagavatam is so important. The mature fruit of the tree of Vedic literatures. The Kalpataro, the desire tree of Vedic literatures, is there, but it is the mature fruit of the tree of Vedic literatures is the Srimad Bhagavatam. It is the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutras, and it brings us to this completely transcendental platform where we hear about the Lord and his different incarnations, his different pastimes. And we hear from that Bhagavatam, as the verse that's quoted here, that Itecham sa kalapum sa Krishnastu Bhagavan Svayam. He is the original. All other personalities of Godhead are either plenary portions or portions of a plenary portion expanded again. But Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, from which or from whom all the other incarnations are manifesting. And this is elaborately supported by so many Vedic statements in the Upanishads and the different sections of different Puranas and so on and so forth, all supporting that Krishna is that original personality of Godhead. And it's so important for us to understand this, because otherwise we can easily become confused. And we start to equate one incarnation with the other incarnation, and then the different devatas are there. And so therefore we find ourselves in a big kitchery, which is being discussed that in the Hindu tradition. Again, we even find the word, Prabhupada said, Hindu is coming, it is coming from the people who were living in the Indus Valley region of the Indus Valley, northern India. And those persons were followers of the Vedic culture, very strictly, very much following, and they were known as the Indus, and gradually it became Hindus. So those people following the ancient Vedas, living in that region, were called, gradually became Hindus. And unless it is very clearly understood, gradually over a period of time, the science becomes lost, and it all becomes a kitchery. That all the devatas are the same, and then the devatas are the same as different incarnations, because they're empowered to different degrees, and before you know it, you have lost the clarity around the personality, the original personality of Godhead. And it's not bad, but it's not very good, meaning it's good in the different Vedas, there's different pious activities, there's encouragement to act in good ways, and so on and so forth. But Trigunya Vishaya Veda, Nistrigunya Bhavarjana, in the second chapter, we are going to hear this, where Krishna says, the Vedas deal mainly with the three modes of material nature. And I encourage you to give up all desires or anxieties for gain and safety, and to go beyond those three modes of material nature and become established in the self. This is the transcendental religion. Srila Prabhupada pointed out that there is the traditional concept, or your conventional concept of religion, is that we go to God to gain something from God. We pretty much see God as an order supplier. Oh God, give us good health, give me some wealth, give me some happiness in this world, give me elevation to higher planets after this lifetime. So we're wanting something from God. And the Vedas are explaining how, whatever your existential situation, your life condition, how to act in a way which will continue your good karmas, and you will be able to continue in varieties of ways enjoying in this world through the different planetary systems. So this is traditional or conventional religion. But there is the transcendental religion, which means to gain liberation from this cycle of birth and death through 8,400,000 species. And not just to gain liberation, just basically to understand the difference between matter and spirit and to differentiate, but to develop love of Godhead, And that love of Godhead will enable us to stay, or to approach and enter into the kingdom of God, and to stay there. There's no need to come back to this material world. Chakvadeha Purna Janma Naiti. No more birth and death. And as I was just saying, it's only by that love that we're able to, if we can develop that love for Krishna. So that is our task. Continuing on then, so it's very important to understand Krishna as the original personality of Godhead, and as we go through the Bhagavad-gita, that will become very apparent that he is, and the importance of understanding that. And if we go into Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll see it again and again and again, the benefit and importance of understanding Krishna. Srila Prabhupada's purport continuing, another paragraph. So, therefore, Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, the absolute truth, the source of both the Supersoul and the impersonal Brahman. In the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Arjuna's lamentation for his kinsmen is certainly unbecoming, and therefore Krishna expressed his surprise with the words kutas, wherefrom? Such unmanly sentiments were never expected from a person belonging to the civilized class of men known as Aryans. The word Aryan is applicable to persons who know the value of life and have a civilization based on spiritual realization. Persons who are led by the material conception of life do not know that the aim of life is realization of the absolute truth, Vishnu or Bhagavan. Nate vidu svartagatim Vishnu. They do not realize, Bhagavatam says, that the goal of life is to render service to Vishnu. And then also in the second chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, second chapter of first canto Srimad Bhagavatam, it makes that verse, it says that the life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. Kamashana indriya pritir labo jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jignasha na arto yascheha karmavi. Nothing else should be the goal of one's work. And what is that? Since human form of life is meant for inquiring into the absolute truth, that is the goal of human life. Therefore, nothing else should be the goal of one's work. Kamasha na indriya, life's desires, kamasha na indriya pritir, should never be directed towards sense enjoyment. But one should desire only a healthy life for self-preservation. Why? Because there's another purpose of life, and that is to inquire into the absolute truth. That is the idea of human life, special gift, to be discussed more. So Prabhupada is saying that an Aryan is applicable to persons who know the value of life and have a civilization based on spiritual realization. And the amazing thing we've discussed many times is that your material life will be perfect also. If you have $1 million, then you have 10,000, you have 100,000, you have $1, you have all these monetary amounts within that. So if we have spiritual life, real spiritual life, it doesn't mean abnegation, it doesn't mean severe austerities, it doesn't mean anything other than pure love of Godhead ultimately. And if you have that, then you will find everything else is an absolute perfect order. So we don't miss out on anything. That's the big illusion, that we think we miss out if we surrender to Krishna, but you don't miss out. All we miss out is all the pain and problems. That's what we miss out on. So the word is there. Persons who are led by the material conception of life do not know that the aim of life is realization of the absolute truth, Vishnu or Bhagavan, and they are captivated by the external features of the material world, and therefore they do not know what liberation is. Bhogaishvaya prashaktanam taya parita chetasam vyavasayatmika buddhya samado navidhiyate. Persons who are too attached to sense enjoyment, material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. This is also there in Bhagavad-gita. Those who are captivated by the external features of material opulence and sense gratification, they do not know what liberation is. Persons who have no knowledge of liberation from material bondage are called non-Aryans. Although Arjuna was a Kshatriya, he was deviating from his prescribed duties by declining to fight. This act of cowardice is described as befitting the non-Aryans. Such deviation from duty does not help one in the progress of spiritual life, nor does it even give one the opportunity to become famous in this world. Lord Krishna did not approve of the so-called compassion of Arjuna for his kinsman. Om Ganatimarandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Grave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual masters forced me to open my eyes with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto his lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, at the end of the purport here, Srila Prabhupada is pointing out that this is a deviation from his prescribed duty as a Kshatriya, that was to fight. So the Shastras, which are given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, describe all the different duties and responsibilities for all the castes and divisions of life. And Krishna is pointing out here that as a Kshatriya, it is your duty to fight, to uphold the religious principles. Everything has been attempted to avoid this war, and now it is time to fight. It's not the time for lamentation, it's not the time for fear, it's not the time for being for wavering from one's prescribed duty. I was thinking earlier of the different qualities, and one verse that came to mind was Titikshava Karunika Surida Sarvadehina Ajita Satravashanta Sarva Sarubhushana. And I'll just read those qualities here from it's Srimad Bhagavatam 3:25-21. And I was thinking how Arjuna possesses these qualities. It explains the symptoms of a sadhu, saintly person, and that he is tolerant. So Arjuna and the Pandavas were very, very tolerant. They were insulted in so many ways and banished from their kingdom, but they tolerated. Especially Maharaj Yudhisthira encouraged this tolerance. Bhima is a little reluctant, etc. So, but anyway, Arjuna was very tolerant, merciful, and friendly to all living entities. So we see this as being manifest. The friendliness, the mood of being friendly to every living entity, Arjuna is manifest. He has no enemies. He doesn't consider himself to be an enemy of these people who are coming to fight and are determined to have this war, fratricidal war. He's peaceful. He was the Pandavas requested that just please give us 5 villages. In this way we will be able to function as Kshatriyas. So they were able to do that, and he was willing to give up his kingdom. So he was very equipoised and peaceful. And the quality that Krishna is pointing out here, which is interesting, is he abides by the scriptures. So we'll come back to that in a second. And all his characteristics are sublime. So Arjuna had sublime qualities. Krishna makes that very clear throughout the Bhagavad-gita, that you are endowed with godly qualities. And then in this verse of Bhagavad-gita, Krishna is pointing out that you are deviating from the scriptural injunctions for the Kshatriya. Such deviation from duty does not help one in the progress of spiritual life, nor does it even give one the opportunity to become famous in this world. Lord Krishna did not approve the so-called compassion of Arjuna at this point in time for his kinsman, because it was just taking him away from performing that which had to be done. But the qualities are there for Arjuna. He certainly was a very, very qualified personality. But Krishna's encouragement to Arjuna is that he should fight to uphold the religious principles. So there's quite a lot actually covered in this purport. I'm just trying to think as to where we should go with it. At the beginning, the principle or the concept of Bhagavan, as Krishna being the personality of Godhead. So that was explained quite elaborately, that those who know the absolute truth realize this non-dual substance as in three phases, as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. It is interesting to note that the Vaishnavas accept all three features and are able to accommodate those three features, that actually there is the impersonal aspect of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is the localized aspect, and there is ultimately the personality of Godhead from whom everything is emanating. And Krishna, throughout the Gita, he makes this very clear. There's no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung upon a thread. So it is from that Supreme Personality that the glaring effulgence, Brahmano hi pratishtaham, I am the source, Krishna says, of the impersonal Brahman. So although the Lord expands unlimitedly, as we were hearing, in his plenary portions and parts of plenary portions, the different avatars that are manifest, and he is also expanding as the living entities. They are the Tatashta Shakti, or the marginal potency of the Lord. And he expands unlimitedly into every atom of the creation. Wow. So that is also explained in the Brahma Samhita, that although he is, all the universes are contained within the Supreme Lord, he is he's present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered about these various universes. And even though he expands into every atom, his full potency is still retained, it's not diminished at all. So this is the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it makes complete sense that even though inconceivable in one sense, but also makes a lot of sense of that Supreme Person, that he can expand into every aspect of his manifested worlds, but he remains complete and not diminished at all by that expansion. And he's able to, and we can see that the energy of God is there, and he's also in the heart of every living entity. And Krishna again, Bhagavad-gita, is explaining, I'm directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on the machine of the material nature, the body, and all the different types of species and different types of bodies. And I'm directing the wanderings of everyone. I'm sanctioning, I'm facilitating, I'm making arrangements for all the living entities. And Nicho Nichanam Chetanas Chetananam. There are many eternals, and there's one supreme eternal who's facilitating all the many, many small eternals. And that's, if we study it carefully, we'll see that is the case. I've mentioned this many times, and Prabhupada points it out throughout the Bhagavad-gita, that we are completely dependent on the Lord for everything, for the food that we eat, the air that we breathe, the ability to see, to hear, to touch, to taste, all the sensual perceptions. And yet the power of Maya is that we think ourselves independent and able to exist until death finally comes and takes us away. Again, we're carried by this superior energy, by this superior intelligence, the superior arrangement through nature, which is working under Krishna's direction. And we are, again, we have to take our birth. For one who is born, death is certain, and for one who dies, birth is certain. So Krishna says, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, Arjuna, you should not lament. Asochan anvasochas tvam prajnavada shabasase gatasum agatasum cha nanusochanti pandita. Krishna says that you're lamenting or you're mourning for that which is not worthy of grief. The wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. They're equipoised. They've learned how to function within the world and are not buffeted unnecessarily by the material world, by the material existence. So we can see then, as we go through Bhagavad-gita, we will see this time and time again, the position of the Supreme Lord. And Krishna says in Bhagavad-gita also that I can only be understood as I am, standing before you, Arjuna, by undivided devotional service. That is the way to come to understand my feature as Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Only by devotional service can I be known as I am. And only in this way can one enter into the kingdom of God. So that is the desire of the intelligent bhakta, who is seeing that, yes, this is the complete understanding of the Absolute. He's there in everything. He's there personally guiding all the living entities, and still he remains the complete personality of Godhead, enjoying his transcendental pastimes in the eternal spiritual existence par excellence, where there is no birth, death, disease, and old age. There is no inebriety, there is no anxiety, but there's eternal blissful existence, full of loving exchanges with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is Krishna's invitation, and we are time and time again reminded through the pages of the Bhagavatam that this is what is available, and it is up to us to accept it or not. Especially we're reading the first canto Bhagavatam, around the 10th chapter, and 3 or 4 verses, practically each verse, and some part of his purport, he was making this statement that it's our choice. It's there, it's available, it can be understood, and there's a system to understand it, and we can take that up. And take it up blindly, but by gaining answers, one can what would you say, in a very informed way, take up the path of devotional service, realizing that this is the path to take. All the other paths, if you check them out and see where they lead to disappointment, frustration, in so many different ways. So the path of bhakti is able to take us to that ultimate shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. So it's a gradual process, and if we continue gradually, we will more and more gain that shelter and gain the realization of the nature of the material existence, its temporariness and its difficulty, and one can come more and more to that point of seeing and understanding that the best path is the path of devotion to the Supreme Lord. So Arjuna is deviating. Krishna is pointing that out, and he's saying that, just seeing if there's any major thing. I'm sure there's many things Srila Prabhupada covered. He's made it very clear that Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, and so I think those are the major points, and the Aryans are those persons that learn how to act according to their position in the social and spiritual orders of life, that know the progressive value. Yes. And deviating from that, whatever our situation, if you're a Kshatriya, you have to fight. If you're a Vaishya, you have to maintain the people in a very be dedicated to that service. If you're a Brahmana, you have to perform your duties as a Brahmana. And if you're a Sudra, you have to remain humble and serve the other orders. In that way, this will please Krishna in the progressive spiritual life. Savai pum samparo dharmo yato bhaktira dhoksaje ahoituk. Ahoituki, yeah. Savai pum samparo dharmo yato bhaktira dhoksaje ahoituki apratiyata yenatma suprasiditi. The supreme occupation for all humanity is that by which a person can render devotional service unto the personality of Godhead. Such devotional service should be unmotivated and uninterrupted in order to completely satisfy the self. So this is the path of bhakti. So I'm going to pause there. Maybe I'll just check buttons and so on for a second, just in case there's a few. I'll just press that one and see what happens. Okay, so we don't have any specific questions at this point. Okay. Okay, so I think we'll finish there. We, Krishna willing, should be back next Thursday. And I think Atmananda's Wednesday and Krishna's Tuesday. So let's see how we go with that. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad-gita ki jai. Ananta Koda Vaishnava Brinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna.